Welcome to the second part of our video series, Incredible Facts About the 50 US States. Let's dive into this amazing video. 11. Hawaii is the only US state to be made up of a chain of islands. Not only that, but Hawaii is actually the largest chain of islands in the world. 132 islands make up this isolated state, but only 7 of these are inhabited: Niihau, Lanai, Molokai, Kauai, Oahu, Maui, and Hawaii. This picture-perfect chain of islands was formed by shifts in the Earth's crust, causing lava to rise to the ocean surface, which solidified into islands after it cooled off. 12. The largest beagle in the world lives in Idaho and isn't a living dog. Known as Sweet Willie, this 30-foot-tall beagle is a bed and breakfast. Sweet Willie lives among 60 other much smaller dog sculptures crafted in various poses in Dog Bark Park, just outside of Cottonwood, Idaho. The owners of Sweet Willie have been called barking mad along the way, but they don't care. They keep pumping out more and more chainsaw-carved dog statues every year. 13. The first skyscraper in the world was built in Chicago, Illinois. It's somewhat ironic that it was named the Home Insurance Building, considering it was built in 1895, but shortly after, much of Chicago burnt down in the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. The way the Home Insurance Building was constructed was revolutionary for its time. Built with a steel frame, which made it much more fire-resistant. Using steel frames also allowed it to be much taller than previous buildings, so when construction was finished, it stood an impressive 138 feet tall. 14. The founder of KFC wasn't actually from Kentucky, but Indiana. That's right, the man behind KFC was born and raised in Henryville, Indiana. The first place he sold his fried chicken wasn't in Kentucky either, but in Salt Lake City, Utah. It was only when Colonel Sanders was getting old and running out of money that he decided to begin the KFC restaurant franchise in earnest, starting with his first KFC restaurant in Corbin, Kentucky. 15. The world's largest bike touring event is held every year in Iowa. The Register's annual Great Bicycle Ride across Iowa began in 1973, when 2 riders from the Des Moines Register decided to cycle across Iowa. They wrote articles as they went, along with anyone who wished to join them on their 6-day route. Both the articles were written about their trip, and the trip itself was an instant hit, with many who missed out requesting it be held the following year again. These days, more people want to bike across Iowa than there is space on the roads, so numbers are limited to about 8,500 participants yearly. 16. You can visit Dorothy Gale's house replica from The Wizard of Oz in Liberal, Kansas. Fans of the timeless 1939 film have long wondered where in Kansas Dorothy was from. So the city of Liberal decided to claim Dorothy as one of their own. A replica of Dorothy's house was constructed with a yellow brick road. If that doesn't convince you to visit, they also happen to now have a so-called tornado simulation room. 17. There's so much whiskey in Kentucky that there are more than twice as many barrels as there are residents. Believe it or not, that's just counting the barrels of Kentucky bourbon whiskey. Given the world's never-ending demand for Kentucky bourbon, it's no surprise that Kentucky houses so many barrels. That said, with a population of 4.5 billion and 9,266,228 barrels of bourbon, it's still a little crazy. 18. Forget France. The frog capital of the world is actually in Louisiana. Back in 1941, Maine was home to the Louisiana Frog Company plant, the world's largest supplier of edible frogs at the time. But the demand for the slimy snack lessened over time. So in 1973, the town's residents started throwing an annual frog festival to keep their crown as the capital of all things frog-related. Nowadays, the Frog Festival has a range of attractions, including a parade, ample frogs to kiss, and even frogs dressed up in cute outfits. 19. Most of Stephen King's horror stories are set in the sleepy New England state of Maine. Stephen King has truly managed to capture the spirit of small-town America, and much of it is thanks to where he lives, Maine. A lifelong resident, King is constantly being inspired by what he sees around him, modeling much of the background of his stories of it. With a dark twist, of course. Hilariously, most of the scenes in the movie adaptations of his novels weren't set in Maine. 20. The first American-born woman to be canonized lived in Maryland. Elizabeth Ann Seton was born in New York City in 1774, but it wasn't until later in the early 1800s that she began to truly make a difference in the world. Then she moved to Emmitsburg, Maryland, where she founded the Sisters of Charity of St. Joseph's. Elizabeth Seton was deemed saintly much later in 1975, partially for her charitable works, but most importantly for sowing the seed for countless charitable organizations that give aid to the needy both in the U.S. and abroad. Thanks for watching.